Hey everyone, Bradley here with Kindful. I'm excited to have Sheila Bennett join me today from CORE, which stands for Children of Restaurant Employees. Sheila's going to share with us how CORE has responded and pivoted in response to the coronavirus outbreak. Sheila, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh my goodness, Bradley, thanks for the opportunity to talk a little bit about CORE.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's just jump right in. First off, can you tell us a bit more about CORE and your mission for people who aren't aware of it?
Oh, absolutely. CORE was developed over 20 years ago to provide support to food and beverage employees with children when either the parent or child were navigating life-altering circumstances, and that was defined as a health crisis, injury, illness, death, or a natural disaster like the tornadoes that have been ravaging our nation.
Great. And can you, now that we know a little bit about that, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to
Great question. Yeah, I started out truly in the restaurant industry and worked in various buckets in distribution, the National Restaurant Association, large contractors, technology. And even a few years ago, I was led to an organization called Share Our Strength, and they wanted someone to create a national dine out program to engage the industry to end childhood hunger. It was first called the Great American Dine Out, and I rebranded it the Dine Out for No Kid Hungry and led that program for 7 years and took it industry wide. Then came to Fishbowl and Technology to head up their business development, and they were going through transition. And I thought, well, what am I going to do next? And this opportunity at CORE was presented to really take this organization to the next level and to the industry at large. So I'm pretty excited that I've worked still connected to food and beverage. I've worked in nonprofit space. I understand our industry and the challenges they face. So it's rewarding to be here.
Yeah, and I'm a bit of a kindred spirit. I worked 15 years as a server, bartender, restaurant manager. So
Oh
I
my
also have
goodness.
really,
Mhm.
place in my heart for the hard work that, our service industry puts in, and specifically in restaurants. Um,
Absolutely.
and so I want to dive into a little bit about the coronavirus situation. One of the things we've heard a great deal about during the coronavirus situation has been organizations' uncertainty about how to fundraise and in
Mhm.
many cases, even how to act out their mission. Can you share a little bit with us about how CORE has had to pivot to respond to the coronavirus situation?
Oh, absolutely. Well, keep in mind, I only came on board to CORE a little over 3 months ago. And my first,
Join.
I tell you, right at an exciting time in our history. But I came on board and attended a board meeting, and they were wanting to revisit the vision and the mission of CORE and think through it. And the mission, and at the time, was that CORE was going to grant to children of food and beverage service employees navigating life-altering circumstances. Well, in light of COVID and a lot of the increased visibility we started to receive, I quickly had to change the content and pivot and button that up and be a little bit more clear and concise about who we are and what we do and really spell it out, because people in a crisis mode, they're not researching your website. They see one statement and they gravitate onto that and they say, oh, that's me, I qualify. When in turn, life altering circumstance could be defined as losing your job, which many thousands of people have in the restaurant industry. However, the life altering circumstance was defined as a health crisis, medical diagnosis, illness, injury, a death, or natural disaster. So that was how we quickly had to recraft, be transparent, and make sure communications were clear.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important to highlight is that although you guys have had a lot of success with being featured places and stuff like that, like clarity is so key, especially with such a large population that you serve is being incredibly affected by a situation, right? And being able to, because it takes man hours to go through all the grants and everything that you're getting, right? I mean, it's a lot of work to sift through those and to make sure that they're all being seen, because I'm sure so many of them are legitimate, but then many of them are that you have to send maybe what is a tough message to be able to say, hey, unfortunately, you don't meet our requirements, right?
Correct. And that's really tough on the grants team. So to alleviate the number of unqualified applications they were receiving, we also had to quickly pivot on language and content because we were getting thousands of employees that were, unemployed. But we did add also a resource center onto our website that if you were dealing with COVID and where to go to for additional resources that may be able to help.
And that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that. One of the things that has gone really well for your organization has been your ability to get some really great publicity and shout outs. You've been featured on Jimmy Kimmel by him and his wife. You've had world-renowned chefs promote CORE, and you were even highlighted by a Backstreet Boy. Can you share with us how some of these opportunities have came about and how you've felt like you've made the most of them?
Well, simply, guys, be fearless, be kind, and be authentic in any time that you go and ask for anything. We were fortunate to have a network of organizations that love CORE and what we do and believe in our mission and our work. And they've seen the work for, over a decade of us helping families in the industry. So they were coming to us wanting to make wonderful donations, and we would sit down at the table together, of course, virtually through Zoom, and have meetings or conference calls to find out how we could collaborate, what was important to them, what was their also motivation is that some organizations simply just wanted to support what we were doing and make a donation. Others wanted to engage and create programs that are cause marketing programs that could also be good for business at this really challenging time facing our economy. Then others would say, well, we want to make a donation. And I remember, for example, Barefoot Wines, and I'll use that example. I got the call from our contact there, who's just awesome. And we were talking about our work and their organization. And she said, well, we want to make this donation. And as we're talking about what I wanted to achieve at CORE, I said, I've come up with an idea, and it's for a hand washing campaign. And I said, but I'm looking to get celebrities engaged to that because that's going to be the way to grow our brand visually and to get more champions and supporters. And so she said, we've worked with Jimmy Kimmel before. Let me see if he'd be willing to do something. And of course, to present their brand. They went to them where she had made, and this is all, in the media, but she had made a commitment from their organization of $100,000, which I was just floored with.
Yeah.
She called me back within 2 days and said, we're increasing this amount and we're going to be featured on the Jimmy Kimmel minicam when he was filming initially from his home. But now we're going to donate $300,000. Well, you can imagine, I almost fell out of my chair. And that we're going to be featured on Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, first time ever for CORE. I was so humbled. I mean, it brought tears to my eyes. I think I cried on the phone. And so we quickly made sure, and this all happened quickly. I was on the phone till midnight on the computer. I was living in Atlanta at the time. They're in California. And I would just stay up and work on it as long as needed because it was pretty exciting. And then we promoted that. And then I went to my board and I went to everybody I knew just going, well, can we get some celebrities to do this hand washing idea and to drive visibility, because hand washing is so very important in food safety, health safety, as we know about COVID. And even with the National Restaurant Association, Ed Foundation, they have a contest every year at the big restaurant show. And it's a hand washing contest of who washes their hands the best. And it used to be that you could sing a song for 20 seconds and that was happy birthday. Yep. Sing happy birthday to me, sing it. And then they even have machines you put your hands under to see how clean they were, which was pretty cool. But anyway, so one of our board members knew Howie D and others. Another one knew Joe Piscopo. And then they challenged their friends and they knew other celebrity chefs, and the movement grew.
Yeah. And and I've seen that on my own social media, that movement growing and things like that. Mm-hmm. And then, I'll have to say, we were just also so delighted for you guys when we saw you guys featured on Jimmy Kimmel, because I think Jared on our team actually was the one that saw it and shared it with our whole staff, and we were all just thrilled for you guys. So it's such an amazing thing that happened there. I think, one of the things that's a little bit of a theme that you said during some of that is when you were talking to Barefoot, right, you just asked, right? And I think like that's such a amazing, it's a simple thing, but I think it's such an amazing thing to highlight is your the willingness, and you said this earlier, to be fearless and authentic, but the willingness just to ask. Do you feel like that's been a really important part of, just finding success during this time?
Oh, absolutely. And you always ask the question out of curiosity. You're just curious, like, do you know anybody? Or is this a possibility? I'm just trying to reach out to everybody I know to see if there's some way we could blend that into a promotion to help promote your brand, but also promote core. And I think positioning is always very important. So just be very thoughtful and the ask without always expectations. But yes, be fearless.
That's great. So, you've already mentioned Barefoot, but you've also had a lot of success engaging corporate sponsors who've made
Mhm.
pledges to support core. Can you share a little bit more about that success specifically? I know that's something that a lot of folks are interested in. Some individuals are a little want to be thoughtful about asking individuals for donations and stuff like that. But how have you fostered those relationships, and how do you continue to kind of build that network and get results from that?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. With us, it's been being tied into the industry. Historically, we've gone to industry conferences where the movers and shakers are. And plus, we've got a really strong network within CORE. So we've been working on communications through our board of directors, and we have an ambassador program through our network of ambassadors and providing them with tools and content to promote our brand. Then we reach out to organizations, and in many cases, they've reached out to us. Like Patron Bacardi, Tito's Handmade Vodka, Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey, so Moaning Gourmet Syrups, Rodney Strong Wines, the Wine Group. I mean, and I'm going to be forgetting somebody, trust me, because there's so many organizations. Jose Cuervo, they've all supported us in a big way because they believe in the mission and the work. And again, it's just having those conversations, scheduling time. And even though you may get that donation at one time, it's the follow-up. It's keeping them engaged and informed as to the progress that we're making.
And you've also got some like additional resources through some of those networks too, right? Like you've got some help in terms of actually people that are helping you, not
Mhm.
necessarily monetarily, but helping you with your marketing and things like that, right?
Exactly. We were able, because of the increased visibility, the number of grants that were coming through, to hire a couple of part-time consultants. But also, one of our partners, knowing that we needed additional resources, American Beverage Marketing Group, his daughter was in transition for her next opportunity, and she's wicked smart in marketing and social media. So he loaned her to us, and we even did a little shout out on Facebook. So look at some of the fun things we're doing on Facebook too. But we did a shout out to Mia and the work that she's doing. Also, IMI Agency has loaned us folks to work on their team, which in a way is our parent company to some degree. And they've provided resources in finance and also in reviewing grant applications and vetting those documents, which has been great in resources. So it's amazing what your network can do to help you. And even some of the partners that supported CORE said, we know you need resources. Please allocate some of these funds to resources to help your team and to be able to conduct the work at hand.
I think that's a great point and a great distinction is that it is okay to understand that sometimes you are going to need help and you're going to need
Mhm.
and a lot of times I think we think so heavily, especially in the nonprofit, about resources in the way of fundraising and funds, but sometimes some of the most beneficial things you can get is just extra help, right? Extra
Mhm.
man hours, extra bodies, extra people to help you, whether that's spreading your message, or because I feel like that's such a big theme of what you've said so far is you've got, although your network and the help from people has helped you be able to actually get the byproduct of additional funds raised, right?
Exactly. And it's knowing how to tell that story and the ROI and the validation of why you need help. And I'll give you one example that was really key. And knowing that we needed help on granting applications to review those and assess them, we looked at the number of grant applications we received last year, because at the time we were really focused on the beverage space vertical. So restaurants that sold adult beverages. We're broadening that message. and my connections go beyond that space. So last year we received under 300 applications for the entire year. This year I've already received 4,500 plus applications. So when you amplify the amount of work that needs to be processed, that really states your business case of why you need extra help. You've just got to be, again, clear in your communications, analyze, look at the data, and report, track, and measure.
Okay, well, look, this has been so great, and it's such interesting information, and it's been really awesome to hear, how you guys are pivoting everything from your mission statement all the way through, how you're making asks and stuff like that. One thing I'd like to, start to end with is most of our audience is nonprofit employees, and so what words of encouragement would you have for other nonprofit professionals who are just trying to find similar success?
Great question, Bradley. Definitely always just stay focused first on what is your mission at hand, why are you here, what are you set out to do, and how are you going to get there? Be clear in your communications, both internally and externally, to your stakeholders. Look and see what's on your website. Is everything consistent across the board? Which we were kind of running and gunning at the same time and doing multiple things with limited resources. So it took a little bit more time than we anticipated to make sure that we had transparency across the board. But also be curious. Be very curious about new and exciting and innovative ways to do things. And also be fearless. Ask good questions and ask for help when needed and appropriately, and use some metrics and an ROI business case behind it to validate why you need help.
And I can't overstate, I think, how much I've heard from you, this idea of being fearless and asking for help. And I think that's something that, we've talked to so many organizations through this situation, and we've held multiple panel discussions and webinars and sifted through hundreds, if not thousands of questions. And one of the things I feel like is a consistent theme is just a little bit of fear in, am I going to upset someone during this time about asking a question, or am I? And I think something I've learned from you, even just in the short time, is that with the right positioning and the right authenticity, asking a question is not a negative thing. As long as you don't have, maybe I'm kind of assuming something here, but as long as you don't have some expectation on what the answer is going to be, right? Like it's okay to ask the question. Would you say that?
It definitely is, but also be thoughtful in your questions. And if it needs to be a conversation, schedule a call versus having a series of questions going back and forth, because someone may be focused on work at hand, and be thoughtful and respectful about the questions that are being asked. If you're in a meeting with a client or prospect or partner, have your questions thought out of in advance if you can, and be prepared. Always be prepared in anything that you do. But then it's okay to ask questions. Just make sure they're thoughtful questions.
All right. Well, Sheila, I know you're incredibly busy, and I really, really appreciate the time just sharing some of your thoughts with us today. In closing, can you just, if anyone is watching and wants to learn more about CORE or contribute to the amazing work you're doing, where can they go?
My goodness, they can go to our website at coregives.org. That's COREGIVES.org. And also for fun, follow us on Facebook. And you can see some of the creative posts that Mia and Stacy are creating and how we're communicating out and engaging our stakeholders, ambassadors, and partners.
Well, look, from all of us at Kindful, we really appreciate the work you're doing. Like I said, it holds a special place in my heart. I didn't have children or a family when I was working in restaurants, but I now have 4 kids, and
my goodness,
can't, imagine, how tough it would have been to have children and to also rely on what is a really great profession, right? To have that away. And so I'm just so, I was really excited to get to talk to you, and I appreciate the work you're doing. So thank you so much for the time today.
Well, thanks for having me here, Bradley. And everyone, good luck in all the work that you're doing as well. So, we're in this together, and we'll get through it. Thank you.
Thank you.